The banners of House Stark fluttered against the cold northern winds, grey direwolf heads snapping as if alive. Robb Stark, the young wolf, stood tall before his men. They saw him as their king, their hope against the lions of the south. Yet, fate, woven by fire and blood, had something far more extraordinary in store for him. It began not on the battlefield, but in a dream. That night, Robb dreamt of wings vast as clouds, of heat searing his face, of a roar that shook the earth. He awoke sweating, grey wind pacing uneasily, growling at shadows unseen. Maesters would have called it a fevered dream, but Robb knew better. Blood of the first men ran in his veins, old magic still whispered in the crypts of Winterfell. The dream was no accident. That was a calling. Days later, as the war raged, scouts brought news of a strange beast sighted near the mountains of the Vale, a creature of fire, black as obsidian, its wings blotting out the sun. Men muttered in fear dragons had been gone for over a century. Yet Robb, remembering his dream, felt something stirred deep within him. He led a small host, not as king but as hunter. Determined to see for himself, they found it in a ruined valley, resting among stone and ash. A dragon, grown but not yet ancient, its scales shining like forged steel. The men trembled, some fled, but Robb did not. Grey wind howled, yet did not retreat. Robb stepped forward, his heart pounding with both terror and awe. The dragon's golden eyes fixed on him, and in that moment Robb felt their souls brush like two predators recognizing one another. Fire did not consume him. Instead, the beast lowered its head. The men who remained would never forget the sight of their king placing a hand upon the dragon's snout. They whispered of destiny, of old prophecies. Robb named the dragon Frostfire, for its breath carried not only fire, but a strange shimmering chill, a legacy of some ancient magic twisted by the north. From that day, the young wolf was no longer just a king. He was a dragon rider. Word spread like wildfire. The north bent knee, not only from loyalty, but from awe. Rivals trembled, allies reconsidered. Dragons had built an empire before, and now one served a Stark. Catelyn feared it, remembering the Targaryen's doom, but Robb saw hope. With Frostfire, the Game of Thrones itself had changed. The first time Robb took flight, Frostfire's wings carried him above the forests of the Riverlands. Below, thousands of his men roared, hailing him as not only king in the north, but as something greater, almost mythical. And yet, in the sky, Robb realized something dangerous. The throne of Westeros was no longer a dream he could ignore. With a dragon, he could not only avenge the Red Wedding waiting to unfold, but reshape the very order of the realm. The young wolf had become the dragon wolf, and his war was only beginning. The Riverlands bled under the shadow of war. Villages burned. Fields were trampled, and corpses lined the roads. Yet when the northern banners marched now, they did so with a new cry, the dragon wolf. Men followed Robb Stark, not merely as their king, but as the rider of Frostfire, a creature thought lost to legend. The war had shifted, and all knew it. At Riverrun, his bannermen gathered in awe as Frostfire descended, wings blotting out the sun. The dragon's roar echoed across the castle walls, making even hardened warriors shiver. Edmure Tully gaped, the Blackfish muttered prayers, and even great Jon Umber, bold and loud as he was, fell to silence. By the old gods, he whispered, the boy has fire itself at his command. The men cheered, their oaths renewed tenfold. Robb had not just their loyalty, but their devotion. Catelyn Stark, however, watched with troubled eyes. Dragons built empires, Robb, She warned her son privately, but they also destroyed them. The Targaryens lost everything when their beasts grew too proud. Power like this changes men and kingdoms. Robb listened, but his mind was already turning toward strategy. He loved his mother, but he could not ignore what Frostfire represented. The North had a chance to do more than just survive. It could win. The first test came swiftly. A Lannister host, led by Stafford Lannister, sought to rally at Oxcross. Robb marched with his usual cunning, but this time he had something no foe could prepare for. As the lions of Casterly Rock formed their lines, the ground quaked and the sky darkened. Frostfire soared above, the shimmer of coldfire sparking in its throat. Panic swept through the Lannister ranks. Horses reared, knights broke formation, and even seasoned veterans screamed as fire and frost rained from the sky. Robb struck with his cavalry in that chaos, and the field belonged to the Starks within an hour. No raven carried back the news as swiftly as rumor did. Whispers spread from village to village, from hall to hall. The Starks had a dragon. Lords once hesitant began to reconsider their allegiance. Some said the gods themselves had blessed the North. Others that the blood of the first men carried a destiny older than betrayal. The Lannisters, though, understood the truth. This war was no longer a matter of gold and swords. It was survival. In King's Landing, Cersei raged when she heard a wolf on a dragon. Lies meant to frighten us. But Tyrion, ever more cautious, frowned. If it is true, sister, then we face a war none of us can win. A single dragon shifts the balance of power entirely. Even Joffrey, cruel and arrogant, paled at the thought. We have the Red Keep, the Kingsguard, he began, but silence said everything. The old lion had known fear before, and this was one of those times. Robb, though victorious, felt the weight of his new role. He had always been a commander who fought beside his men, but Frostfire placed him above them, in a way both inspiring and isolating. When he landed after battle, men reached for him like a figure of legend, not a mortal king. Grey Wind snarled at the crowds, sensing what Robb himself began to understand, that he was no longer seen as just their lord. He was something more dangerous, a symbol, yet symbols could win wars. With Frostfire, Robb secured the Riverland, swiftly pushing the Lannisters back, liberating villages and burning supply lines from the sky. The dragon was as much a terror as a weapon. Lannister men deserted in droves, unwilling to fight against fire. And when the Karstarks and Umbers rallied once more, Robb saw for the first time a path beyond mere vengeance for his father. With a dragon, he could march south. He could take King's Landing. He could unite the Seven Kingdoms, not under a lion or stag, but under the direwolf. Still, shadows lingered. Catelyn's warnings haunted him, and the memory of the fall whispered of the dangers ahead. Even among his allies, some grew wary. The Freys muttered that dragons brought ruin, and Walder Frey questioned whether his daughter's hand was safe in the house of such unpredictable fire. Yet those fears were drowned beneath the tide of victories. To the common folk, Robb Stark was a hero, a savior with wings and flame. Late at night, when campfires dimmed, Robb would sit with Frostfire and Grey Wind at his side. The dragon's golden eyes mirrored his own doubts. "What do they see in me?" he whispered once. "A kingi, a conqueror, or a boy playing with fire too great to control?" The dragon gave no answer, only a low rumble that shook his bones. But deep down, Robb knew the truth. He was no longer fighting just for the North. With a dragon beneath him, he fought for the realm itself, and in the south, another queen with dragons of her own stirred across the narrow sea. But neither Robb nor Daenerys knew that yet. The twins loomed ahead, cold and grey across the green. Fork, Robb knew Walder Frey's temper still burned from the broken oath. Yet he also knew that without the Frey's crossing, his war would falter. He agreed to attend Edmure's wedding to Rosalind Frey, but not without a warning. Frostfire would remain outside, and if betrayal came, the twins would burn. Inside the hall, the feast began with tense laughter and forced smiles. Catelyn sensed unease, spotting crossbowmen and too many armed men dressed as servants. When the musician struck a strange tune, she gripped Robb's arm in fear. Moments later, the trap was sprung, crossbows lifted, daggers drawn, and Roose Bolton moved. Like a viper, but this was no ordinary red wedding. At the first quarrel, grey wind tore into the attackers, and outside, horns sounded 3 times. Frostfire's roar shook the twins as the dragon unleashed its strange fire upon the towers. Panic replaced treachery. Frey men fled as stone cracked, and banners burned. Robb fought through the chaos, shielded by loyal men. He struck Roose aside before the dagger could find its mark and pulled Catelyn, Edmure, and Rosalind to safety. The dragon crashed into the yard, scattering Freys like ants. Robb and his kin mounted and escaped the Hall of Betrayal as Frostfire's flames reduced much of the castle to ruin. The bridges he left standing, a deliberate mark of warning. Any who thought to betray the dragon wolf would face the same fate. The red wedding had become the burning of the twins, and the realm would tremble at the tale. The news of the burning of the twins reached every corner of the 7 kingdoms like wildfire. Lords whispered in shock, small folks crossed themselves in fear, and the songs of bards turned grim. Guest right had been broken, but it was not the Starks who paid the price. Instead, it was the Freys, their halls blackened, their banners reduced to ash, their name cursed for treachery. Men began to call Robb Stark not only the young wolf, but the dragon wolf, and in the Riverlands, his legend grew larger than life. At Harrenhal, Tywin Lannister sat in his great chair, the letter trembling slightly in his hand, though his face betrayed nothing. The chamber was silent as knights and bannermen waited. At last, Tywin spoke, his voice measured but heavy with steel. The boy has fire, then we must answer with steel. Dragons do not win wars alone. They require armies, gold, and cunning. And all those we still have. Cersei raged at the news, her pride wounded. A wolf on a dragon. It is impossible. A trick, a lie meant to frighten us. But Tyrion was not so easily deceived. He leaned forward, wine untouched. If the rumors are truant, I think they are, then one dragon in the hands of Robb. Stark changes the balance of everything. The Freys are destroyed. The Riverlands rally to him. He will look south now, farther. We should prepare for wildfire, for siege, for something this city has not faced in living memory. Joffrey, ever foolish, laughed and boasted he would mount the beast's skull on the Red Keep's gates. Tywin silenced him with a glare colder than the wall. You are king, and kings do not laugh at war. They win them, while the lions sharpened their claws. Robb Stark called a council at Riverrun. Around the war table stood his bannermen, each with their own vision for the war ahead. The Great John slammed his fist down and cried, "March west. Break the lion in its lair. Burn Casterly Rock to cinders, and show them what fire truly means." The Blackfish, grim and sharped, countered, "The rock is stone, and stone does." not yield quickly. King's Landing is the true prize. Cut off the head, and the body falls. Catelyn spoke softly, yet her words carried. Every mile south stretches your supply lines thinner. The north is weary, and dragons have undone great men before. Do not let fire blind you. Robb listened to them all, his face calm, though inside he felt the weight of command like never before. Frostfire waited outside, its shadow falling over the castle walls. Robb turned to the map, his hand brushing over the crown lands. King's Landing, he said at last. The Iron Throne is the heart of this war. Strike it, and the lion's claws will dull. We will not creep like thieves to the rock. We will march as kings. The council ended in silence, but the decision was made. Robb Stark had declared his aim not only vengeance for his father, not only survival for the North, but the very throne of Westeros that night. He walked among his men, speaking as he always had, like one of them. They looked at him now with something more than loyalty. They saw legend. They saw the dragon wolf. Yet Robb, staring into Frostfire's golden eyes, knew that Tywin Lannister was not beaten, only angered, and an angered lion was the most dangerous. Foe of all that the choice made, the North began its march south. False ravens flew in every direction. Rumors spread of a Stark host heading west toward the Rock. Others whispered they had retreated to the Neck. In truth, Robb prepared a direct strike at King's Landing. Frostfire's wings blotted out the sky, scattering Lannister scouts and sending villagers into panic. No secret could be kept with a dragon overhead, yet no secret was needed. Terror itself became Robb's ally. Along the march, men sang louder, morale soaring. They had seen their king survive betrayal, turn death into victory, and command fire from the sky. To them, this war no longer seemed doomed. Every battle song ended with cries of "For Ned," for the North, for the dragon wolf, yet not all were convinced. Edmure Tully, new husband to Roslyn, still pale from the chaos of the twins, urged, "Caution, the city is vast, its walls high, its people many. Even a dragon cannot starve them out alone." The Blackfish agreed, warning of wildfire, the old Targaryen weapon still rumored to sleep beneath the capital. But the great Jon laughed and slapped the table. Let the city burn green if it must. Fire is fire, and we have a beast to match it. Robb stood apart, thoughtful. He knew wildfire was no mere Rumetarian Lannister, was too clever to ignore such a weapon. Yet retreat was unthinkable. To go west would waste time. To delay would allow Tywin to gather more allies. His eyes hardened. The capital will fall. A dragon can do in days what a host could not do in a year. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, fear ate at the court. Spies confirmed Frostfire's existence beyond all doubt. Cersei ordered more wildfire, while Joffrey boasted of decorating the Red Keep with wolf pelts. But the people of the city began to whisper. They had lived under the shadow of dragons. Once before, and now another had come, not Targaryen, but Stark. The thought unsettled them, yet some secretly prayed for it, for Robb Stark was spoken of as just, while their king was cruel. On the eve of his march, Robb walked the camps. He spoke with young squires, with grizzled men who had bled for him, with lords who had bent the knee. Each saw him not only as their king, but as their hope. Yet in the quiet of his tent, Robb admitted to Catelyn, "Every step south is heavier. I fight not only lions now, but the city itself, the crown, and the ghosts of those who sat it before me." Catelyn touched his hand. "Then remember who you are, Robb. Not just a king, a Stark of Winterfell. Do not lose that in the fire. At dawn, Frostfire took to the skies, its wings scattering the mists of the trident. The host of the north marched behind, banners flying, drums pounding. Ahead lay the black water, and beyond it, the city of 1,000 spires and one iron throne. The Game of Thrones was no longer being played by lions and stags alone. Now a wolf with wings was coming. The northern banners spread across the black water's banks like a sea of grey and white. The dire wolf snapping in the southern wind. Behind them, drums pounded, hooves clattered, and thousands of men raised their voices to one cry, the king in the north. But above them all, Frostfire's roar shook the heavens. The dragon's wings cast a shadow across the river, a living omen that the world was changing. Robb Stark reined his horse on a ridge overlooking the capital. King's Landing sprawled in the distance, its walls black and jagged, its towers stabbing at the sky. Smoke curled from 1,000 chimneys, and the red keep glimmered in the sunlight like a crown of blood and stone. To most men, it was an impossible fortress. To Robb, with Frostfire at his side, it was prey in the council tent. His bannermen gathered. The great John grinned, drunk on the sight of the city. One swoop owed that beast, and the gates'll melt like butter. Let me ride in first when the doors crack. The Blackfish was less amused. The city is swollen with hundreds of thousands of souls. Starving them will turn small folk against the Lannisters, but burning them will turn all Westeros against us. We need victory, not butchery. Catelyn spoke quietly but firmly. Wildfire lies beneath those streets. The Mad King nearly destroyed the city with it. If Tyrion or Cersei think they are losing, they may light it. Even Frostfire cannot fight. Green fire. Robb listened, silent, his hand resting on the carved direwolf on the map table. He had learned that every council brought the same division. Some wanted fire, some wanted patience. But he knew time favored Tywin, not him. The longer he delayed, the stronger the lions became. At last he stood. We strike at dawn. Frostfire will burn the outer gates, but only the gates. We do not torch the city. Once inside, we take the Red Keep. The lion has ruled long enough. The order sent a thrill through the camp. That night, torches burned bright, and soldiers sang of Winterfell, of victory, of the dragon wolf who would end the Boy King's reign. Yet in his tent, Robb could not sleep. He stared into the golden eyes of Frostfire, the beast resting like a mountain of muscle and fire. If I win this, he whispered, the realm will be mine. If I lose, the north will fall with me. The dragon blinked slowly, as if weighing him. Grey wind growled low, sensing the storm ahead. When dawn came, the city awoke to terror. The sky split with a roar as Frostfire dived from the clouds. Its breath a torrent of shimmering frost flame that blasted the gates of King's Landing. Stone cracked, iron melted, and guards scattered like ants. Northern horns bellowed. Men surged forward, crashing against walls, ladders rising, shields lifted. Inside the Red Keep, chaos reigned. Joffrey shrieked from his throne, demanding the dragon be slain. Cersei ordered her guards to protect the royal family at all costs. Tyrion alone kept his wits, commanding wildfire barrels hauled into position along the walls. If the beast comes too close, he warned, we drown it in green fire. Robb rode atop Frostfire as the dragon circled the city. Arrows and scorpions loosed from the battlements, some striking scale, most glancing away. The dragon roared in fury, and Robb guided it carefully, holding it back from unleashing its full fury on the crowded streets. His men stormed the breached gates, fighting hand to hand with gold cloaks and Lannister soldiers. The city echoed with steel, screams, and fire. Then came the true danger. A green glow sparked along the riverbanks. From hidden stores, wildfire was unleashed, hurling blazing jars into the sky. They burst like suns, emerald fire spreading across ships, ladders, and men. The heat was unbearable, the screams unending. Frostfire shrieked in pain as a burst of wildfire grazed its wing, leaving it scorched but not broken. Robb pulled hard, guiding the dragon higher. He could not risk diving again without losing Frostfire to the same fate that had consumed dragons before. Below, the northern men fought valiantly, but the wildfire had turned the battle into madness. Asterisk still, the breach was open, and the Red Keep loomed. Robb knew the moment was at hand. He could retreat, save his men, and fight another day or press forward and seize the city now, risking everything. His heart thundered. His father's face flashed before him, calm and steady. His men's voices echoed in his ears. For Ned, for the North. Robb set his jaw. Frostfire, he whispered, to the keep. The dragon roared, wheeling toward the crimson towers of the Red Keep as the battle for King's Landing reached its breaking point. The Red Keep loomed like a blood-soaked crown above the chaos. The battle for King's Landing raged in the streets, below northern men clashing with gold cloaks, wildfire still burning along the river. But all eyes lifted skyward as Frostfire descended, its wings casting a vast shadow over the crimson towers. From the walls, Lannister soldiers loosed arrows and quarrels in desperation. Some scorpions fired, but most crews fled, terrified of the beast. Frostfire's roar split the sky as it unleashed a blast of frostfire against the king's gate, the shimmering blaze cracking stone and warping steel. The walls trembled. The gate collapsed, and northern troops surged forward, flooding into the city's heart. Robb Stark guided the dragon carefully, avoiding the crowded markets below. He was no Ares, no butcher of innocents. This war was not against the people, it was against the crown. He would see the Red Keep fall, not the city burn. Inside the throne room, panic reigned. Cersei clutched Tommen close, her face pale but fierce, while Joffrey screamed from the Iron Throne itself, his voice shrill with madness. "Kill him, kill the beast, I am the king." "Do as I command," but no one obeyed. The guards hesitated, fear breaking their courage. Even the King's Guard exchanged uneasy glances, their oaths clashing with the reality that no white cloak could stop Dragonfire. Only Tyrion kept his calm, though sweat beaded on his brow. "If the beast reaches these doors," he muttered, "then the game is lost." He knew the wildfire had bought them time, but not victory. The clash grew nearer. From Maegor's holdfast to the Tower of the Hand, northern men pressed inward, breaking line after line of resistance. Grey wind, bloody and fierce, tore through the Red Keep's courtyards, scattering soldiers like leaves. At last, the great doors of the throne room shuddered under the weight of the assault. With a final crash, they burst open. Robb Stark strode through, sword in hand, his cloak tattered, his eyes alight with the fire of command. Behind him came bannermen, steel flashing faces, grim. Frostfire could not enter the hall, but its roar echoed through the shattered city, a reminder of power waiting outside. Joffrey leaped to his feet, pointing with trembling hands. "Kill him. He's a traitor, a rebel." His words ended in a strangled cry as Robb advanced, sword steady. The boy king shrank back against the blades of the iron throne, his crown slipping askew. Cersei pushed forward, standing before her son with the defiance of a lioness cornered. You think this makes you king? You think fire and steel give you the right? You are no better than Ares. You will burn the realm for a throne you cannot hold. Robb halted, his chest rising and falling, the weight of choice pressing on him. He could end it now, slay Joffrey, claim the city, place himself upon the throne of swords. The victory would be swift, the North triumphant. Yet his father's voice whispered in his mind, steady as winter. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. His sword lowered slightly. The North did not march to be tyrants, Robb said, his voice steady. I came for justice, for honor. Your house killed my father, butchered my men, sought to break the oaths of guest right itself. But I am not here to burn children or slaughter innocents. His gaze turned cold as he looked at Joffrey. This ends with you. Joffrey shrieked, clawing at the arms of the throne as northern soldiers closed in. The boy's crown clattered to the ground, rolling across the stone floor. Cersei screamed, lashing out like a wildcat. But she was dragged back. At that moment, the hall fell silent but for the crackle of torches. Robb Stark stood before the Iron Throne, the lion's reign broken, the realm holding its breath. Every man and woman present understood that the young wolf had seized more than victory. He had seized destiny itself. Yet as he stared at the jagged throne of blades, Robb hesitated. To sit upon it was to claim all of Westeros, to take a burden far heavier than a crown of gold. And somewhere across the sea, another with dragons of her own was marching toward the same fate. The war was not over. It had only entered a new beginning. The Iron Throne loomed before Robb Stark, its cruel edges forged from the swords of fallen foes. The hall was quiet now. Joffrey had been dragged screaming from the throne, his crown torn away. Cersei clutched Tommen, eyes red with rage and grief, while Tyrion stood apart, watching with an unreadable gaze. The Kingsguard knelt reluctantly, their oaths shattered by dragonfire and defeat. Robb Stark stood at the foot of the throne, his sword still in hand, his face pale with the weight of what he had done. Around him, northern lords and Riverland bannermen waited. They had fought, bled, and burned to reach this hall. Now they looked to their king for the final act. Would the dragon wolf sit where dragons had once ruled? The great gins booming. Voice broke the silence. Sit it, Robb. The throne is yours. No lion, stag, or pretender can stand against you now. Westeros belongs to the North. Others cheered with him, stamping their spears on the marble floor. But not all were so eager. Catelyn's voice rose sharp against theirs. Robb, this throne is a curse. Ares sat it. Robert sat it. Now lions have stained it with blood. Do not let it swallow you. Remember Winterfell. Remember your father. Robb's hand clenched around his sword hilt. He remembered his father's calm voice, his words of honor. He remembered the snows of Winterfell, the quiet of the Godswood, the pack that had once run at his side. The Iron Throne was power, but it was also chains. To rule all 7 kingdoms would mean endless wars, endless betrayals. Was that truly the destiny of House Stark? Tyrion stepped forward then, his sharp eyes gleaming. If you sit, boy, you will find the throne sharper than any sword. It cuts all who claim it. But perhaps you are different. His lips twisted in a bitter smile. The realm loves stories, and what better tale than the wolf who rode a dragon? The chamber held its breath as Robb lifted his sword and touched its tip against the twisted steel of the throne. He stood there for a long moment, staring at it, every man and woman waiting for him to climb those steps. But then he sheathed his blade. "No," he said at last, his voice ringing through the hall. "I am Robb Stark, king in the north. I do not need this chair of broken swords to prove it. Let the south keep its thrones of steel and lies. I will take my people home, and we will rule ourselves, strong and free." A murmur swept through the lords. Some looked relieved, others troubled. The great Jon looked as though he might roar in protest, but even he bowed his head, for in that moment they saw not weakness, but strength to refuse the poison cup that had undone kings before him. Robb turned to Cersei, whose eyes burned with hatred. "You and your son will be taken into the custody of the North. Joffrey will answer for his crimes before the realm, but there will be no slaughter of children. The North keeps its honor, even if others forget theirs." Cersei spat, but she said nothing. Tyrion inclined his head, almost in respect. He had played the game long enough to know when it had been lost. By dusk, the direwolf banner flew above the Red Keep, and the city trembled beneath the shadow of Frostfire. Yet Robb did not linger. Within days, the northern host began its march home, their dragons circling above them like a promise of vengeance to any who dared challenge their king again. The realm, however, was not at peace. Tywin Lannister still lived, his pride wounded, but not broken. Rivals and claimants remained. And far across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen marched with dragons of her own, her eyes fixed on the same destiny that Robb Stark had just rejected. As Frostfire soared above the Trident, Robb looked northward, his heart heavy yet steady. He had won battles, survived betrayals, and shattered the Lannisters' hold on power. Yet he knew the greatest war was still to come, for winter was marching, and with it came not lions, stags, or dragons, but the dead. And when that storm arrived, the dragon wolf would need every flame, every sword, and every heartbeat of the pack to stand against the night.